So did I say welcome to everybody? So welcome everybody, and we still have some more coming in. Hello there, come on down. Don't fall down, but come on down. How about that? Is that Lori there?
Yeah.
Oh, hi Lori. It's going okay so far. So glad you guys are here. We're just getting ready to start saying hello to Saturday Night Live Life Recovery Meeting, and also to you out in the internet. I'm Doug Wilkerson with Saturday Night Live Life Recovery, and also here with Central Christian Center. We're here because, you know, life is messy. Anybody know that life is messy? Has anybody ever had a mess in their life? Has anybody got a mess right now in your life? Some of you are real shy on that stuff, so that's all right. So anyway, we're going to be talking about a very interesting subject out of our Life Recovery Bible and Workbook. Of course, it's step 4 because this is the 4th month, so that's the reason why we do step 4 on the 4th month, and it's putting forth the finger. No, that's not right. Finger pointing, which is the same thing, right? Finger pointing. Lori just, that Lori does that to me, I guess. Blame it on you. Why don't I? So anyway, and it's primarily talking about blaming. And probably nobody here has that problem with blaming or blame shifting or blame it on somebody else, just like I did to you just then. And then that's out of Matthew 7, 1 through 5. The step for tonight, again, step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And that means we look at ourselves fully. We see all the good stuff and the bad stuff. It's always seems to be easier to see all the bad, but we really need to allow ourselves to see the good stuff too, because we all have good stuff in us. We all do good things. We have good behaviors. And so we just need to take an inventory. If you're going to inventory a store, if you have a convenience store, you want to know what all you have in there, so you can evaluate what your next move is. Does that make sense? And if you thought you had more than what you inventory, you thought, well, I have a bunch of this, but for some reason it's not there anymore, then you have to make some adjustments and figure out why it's not there, right? And so we need to look at our life and see if there's stuff missing. Anybody have any stuff missing? Or maybe let's shift it around. Now that you're further along your way here, have you become aware that you've had stuff missing? I should have at least got more response than that. So, and at the end of the night, I'm going to be talking about our blind spots. How about that? Anybody here have blind spots? You don't know it because you're blind in those things. So anyway, we'll be talking more about that. Let's see. Any comments before we get started? All right. Quotes, thoughts, ideas. I had to do a lot of studying, and I didn't put a lot in my, as far as new notes here. So, but I put this one in. I thought it was interesting. And this is from Marcus Aurelius. It says, when you enter into the boxing ring, people start punching you in the face. That makes sense, right? You don't whine about it. You don't ask them, why are you doing that? This is Marcus Aurelius, the King Emperor. It says, that's not fair. I mean, it is fair, right? That's part of the boxing ring. What in the world does all that mean? How does that apply to us today? Any thoughts? Life, absolutely, because life could be compared to a boxing ring, right? There's boxing that goes on in that ring, and the next thing you know, sometimes some of it is legal and some of it's illegal. Sometimes you get hit where you're not supposed to get hit or punched or poked in the eye with a thumb or something, which I don't know anything about any of that stuff, but you have to deal with it and go on, right? Instead of just whining about it and saying, it's not fair. Well, yeah, it's not fair. Let's go forward, right? It's kind of like, a book. It has many pages and many chapters, and you just have to keep moving forward. If you don't like where you're at, just keep moving forward and you'll be in something else soon, right? That's the way life is. This one thing I was studying, I thought it was interesting, so I put it on my notes. It's the model for attachment. Attachment means like emotional attachment, relationship attachment, parental attachment, relationship, significant other attachments. This one here, they're primarily focused right now on these attachments are good for children and adults, and it's what they call the 4 S's. It's safety, smooth, seen, and security. If you're able to cultivate that in a relationship, then that gives a good fertile soil for a potentially healthy relationship. That is safety. If you're under threat all the time, and we know what some of that is, right? It's hard to really develop a good relationship. Smooth, in other words, you soften things, you smooth things out, you make them easier, okay, in the dynamics of your relationship. Seen, you see the other person, you value them for what they are, not necessarily for what they do. See them, okay, appreciate them. And then the last one is security, making others in the relationship secure. If we have, and we have had in the past, but if we've had disturbing elements in the room, then that causes everyone to feel somewhat insecure. Not insecure necessarily in themselves, but as far as security wise, less safe, right? And so when you're less safe, you're more focused on being safe than trying to connect, have a relationship, learn, recover, grow. Does that make sense? So that's the model for attachment. I'm going to read this scripture and then I think we'll go over and read the 12 steps. And this is out of Proverbs 17:22. It says, a joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. How many people do we know or have we known that had dried up spirits? Maybe some of you have had a dried spirit. How did that work out for you? How about you at home? How did that work out for you? So we need to cultivate a joyful heart, because a joyful heart is like good medicine, right? Scripture reference on that is Proverbs 17:22. So we're going to go forward, and here's the 12 steps, and then also we'll be talking about, I'm going to make sure I got it right, finger pointing. Go on down, Brandon. Brandon. Go on down, Brandon. Hello, Brandon.
How's it going? How's everyone doing? All right. Read the 12 steps. 12 steps are: we admitted that we are powerless over our problems and that our lives have become unmanageable. That's out of Romans 7:18 says, I know that nothing good lives in me. That is, I want to do what is right, but I can't. Step 2 is we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. Philippians 2:13 says, God is working in you, giving you the desire and power to do what pleases him. And step 3 is we make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. Romans 12:1 says, Dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. And step 4 says we make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Lamentations 3:40 says, let us test and examine our ways. Let us turn back to the Lord. Then step 5 says we admit to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. James 5:16 says, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. Then step 6 says it says we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. James 4:10 says, humble yourselves before the Lord and he will lift you up in honor. And step 7 says we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. 1 John 1:9 says, if we confess our sins to him, he is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and cleanse us from all wickedness. And step 8 says we make a list of all persons we've harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. Luke 6:31 says, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. And step 9 says we make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Matthew 5:23 says, if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar and someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar, go and be reconciled to that person, then come and offer your sacrifice to God. And step 10 says we continue to take personal inventory, and then when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12 says, if you think you are standing strong, be careful not to fall. Step 11 says we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Colossians 4:2 says, devote yourselves to prayer with an alert mind and a thankful heart. And step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Galatians 6:1 says, dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. But be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. So, finger pointing. Bible reading, Matthew 7:1-5. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. There have probably been times when we have ignored our own sins and problems and pointed a finger at someone else. We may be out of touch with our internal affairs because we are still blaming others for our moral choices. Or perhaps we avoid self-examination by making moral inventories of the people around us. When God asked Adam and Eve about their sin, they each pointed a finger at someone else. Have you eaten from the tree whose fruit I commanded you not to eat? The man replied, it was the woman you gave me who gave me the fruit, and I ate it. Then the Lord asked the woman, what have you done? The serpent deceived me, she replied. It's Genesis 3:11-13. It seems to be human nature to blame others as our first line of defense. We also may avoid our own problems by evaluating and criticizing others. Jesus tells us, why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own, hypocrite? First, get rid of the log in your own eye, and then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. It's Matthew 7:3-5. While doing this step, we must constantly remember that this is a season of self-examination. We must guard against blaming and examining the lives of others. There will be time in the future for helping others after we have taken responsibility for our own life. Whole thing, a lot of times you think, oh, I don't have this problem. The more you read about it, it's like, oh, yeah, because I can say I really don't have a lot of problems, but I got stuff I got to take care of every day, have a life to live. But I thought, like, people that always bringing up other people's stuff, and help stay in your own lane. I get caught up in that so much. Do you have any questions?
Well, I was working on internet issues, and so I
We have to be careful whose toes we step on,
yeah. I would say that I'm not prepared to ask a question.
Go ahead, that's fine. Willie,
I got a question.
ask me. Just be careful whose toes you step on. That could mess you up in the long run.
If we're gonna have to point a finger, then basically you might as well make sure your backyard's clean first, because you're pointing a finger at other people for what you're doing. That's just way you don't have to blame yourself. And until you take responsibility, you're just gonna continue digging that hole deeper. Is all. The question, number one, is it easier to look at the faults and shortcomings of other people in my life, past and present, such as bosses, coworkers, classmates, church members, pastors, than to recognize my own? Well, yeah. If these people are messing up the same way I am, then that makes me normal, makes me better. I don't have to worry about it. I just dig that hole deeper. Number
So
two.
it makes you normal to.
Well, that's the way I see it. It don't make you normal.
Oh.
But if these people you're looking up to, okay, they're doing the same stuff I am, see what they're doing, then, okay, it's okay for me to do it. That's what I meant by that.
Is that what? So you mean if you do what other people do, the same bad stuff other people do that you look up to, then you have approval to do the bad stuff.
Right, that's why
So
you're
what you're
pointing it out in them instead of in yourself. You're not taking your responsibility. That's what,
So that's the reason why you pointed out,
right,
to just so that you're able to do it.
right.
Okay.
To make it right, that, okay, I did it because they did it, so I did it.
You mean to rationalize.
Right. Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's what you meant.
Didn't come out that way. Let's go on to question 2. What is the log in my?
I really have another question, but
Okay.
I'm holding it for that later. I'll come back to that.
Oh, okay.
Just in case you don't know.
All right. What is the log in my eye, the blind spot that has caused me trouble and given rise to pride, finger pointing, and eventually to addiction? The fear of failure would be what you don't want to. You don't want to see it. You don't want to see yourself failing in anything, and so you're gonna try to make up for it any way you can, and you don't realize right or wrong from it, and so you go do whatever you can to fill the hole.
So, you're saying that, your log that's in your eye is fear of failure?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Would your log be, or your blind spot be? Do you know what your blind spot or log might be?
That's a good question.
Excuse me?
That's a good question.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm looking for some good answers or responses.
Tommy, what would yours be?
Why would a person like myself or this book even ask you a question like that?
That's a good question.
That's another good question. You like that?
Yes.
Well, think about why ask that question? How about if I ask another question? See, they're coming together now. My mind's focused on that instead of on the technology and the stuff. So if, I think the reason why, I'm gonna answer that question, the reason why we're asking these questions is because if you're not aware of your blind spots, if you're at least not even, to some degree, knowing that you have some, whether you're absolutely fully aware of them or not, you are really, really susceptible to be hurt or harmed or get into a bad spot. Okay, so the reason why they're asking that is not to make you feel bad, but it's to help you identify your stuff so you can deal with it. That makes sense, right?
Yes.
And so first we have to recognize something before we're able to fix it, right? You have to know there's a problem so you can seek a solution or an answer. And so that's the reason why we're talking about this tonight, and pointing out this habit pattern that we have. And I think this is a really good statement that Willie brought up about fear of failure. I hadn't really thought of that one because I looked at it as more of and you could call it, it's still a fear, but insecurity, and also it's more comfortable. You feel more comfortable. How can I say this? This sounds terrible any way you say it. Maybe some of you might be able to say it better. Sometimes we feel more comfortable with people that are messing up than we are in places where people are not messing up. Right? That came out all right, didn't it? And so, but then what does that say about us? Anybody have a comment on that? What does that say about us? can you smell the smoke?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Willie. We'll let everybody ponder on those.
Question 3. Where and when have I stepped on people's toes and invited retaliation? Have I been proud, blamed, or fearful? Well, I've been all 3. Because
Well, let's do the first part first. Where and when have I stepped on people's toes? And I think a real good, important part of that is invited retaliation. I think that's kind of a significant part of the question there. What do you think, Willie?
I think so too.
Got any thoughts on that, Willie?
A lot of the when and where is when I know I'm doing wrong. I am out to, okay, hey, I done wrong, so I'm gonna start to blame over here and get it on them. That way they can't see my wrong.
So what does it mean, retaliation? Invite retaliation.
They're gonna point the finger right back on you.
Well, I kind of think more like start an argument or a fight, wouldn't you?
Well,
Huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
but if you're
So a good diversion tactic is to start an argument or a fight. Because then they don't look at you, they're just mad and they're reacting. So you're stirring stuff up, inviting retaliation.
Okay.
But none of you've ever done anything like that, right? Said something annoying, or that you knew their buttons and you pushed them anyway? Hello? Well, it got kind of quiet. So, I didn't want to go too fast over that.
Right.
So let's read that first part again.
Where and when have I stepped on people's toes and invited retaliation?
I got a question.
Okay.
This is for everybody. What popped in your mind when we asked that question? Because you had something pop up probably, right? The where or the when. Oh, the when you invited retaliation, when you did that, when you instigated a situation, right? It came up in your thinking, right? Unsolicited, other than asking the question. I wonder what that means. Anybody got any comments on that? You guys have not had many comments tonight.
We're learning.
Learning what? Learning not to make comments? Is this thought-provoking? That's an easy question.
Yes, it is.
Go on, Willie.
Have I been proud, blaming, or fearful? Well, like I said, I've been all 3 of them.
Actually, that's cheerful.
I can't think of my glass, I didn't see it.
Mine's got a T in it. Of course, it's, anybody looking at the book, and am I right? Because I got it on paper. I think it's cheerful. Oh, it's an F there. That's fearful. Sorry.
Probably messed up the whole meeting. Another thing they can blame me on.
God did it, but.
Huh?
God did it, but.
It could be both applicable, because I was thinking about cheerful as being using tears as a form of emotional manipulation or diversion.
Make them feel more guiltful because you started it.
Good. And it's a coping mechanism. So is blaming, and so is being proud. So, all right. You're doing good. Continue on.
I gotta get back to where my train of thought was there from that.
Sorry, excuse me.
It's all right. Have I been proud, blaming, or fearful? I've been all three. Been proud that I started it. Then when they go to blaming me, turn into anger and it becomes fearful. And all along, they ain't the one with the problem, it was me. But I didn't want them to see it, so I just kept on. And then when I calmed down later on, said I'm sorry. So that's all I had. I'm
All right.
It's all you, man.
Sorry about that. I've been having a little bit of sinus congestion and.
All right, here is your time to talk. Any comments on what's been presented thus far? Anyone? Let's not have everyone speak at once. Do what? Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Looking at this topic of shifting blame or finger pointing, wouldn't that be some of this evaluation that step 4 is talking about? Looking at if that's a character defect, a bad habit. Yes, it may have been your lifestyle. It may have been what you learned. Maybe your family of orientation showed that or taught you that. So you came by it honestly, but if we continue to do things that are unhealthy, all that's going to do is make us and the people around us unhealthy too, right? So that's the reason why we're trying to have recovery. Recovery is not just stopping substance abuse or using or acting out obsessive compulsive behaviors, which it's good to be able to manage those and stop those. But one of the main points here at Saturday Night Live is we want you to have recovery, and that's having a change on the inside, because there's a reason why you develop those coping mechanisms, those behaviors, those reactions. They were based on issues and traumas and hurts and pains and difficulties and fears and insecurities. And so you had to find some way to navigate through life with that going on. And normally most of that comes in times where you have very few tools and very few skills. So you pick up what you can, and most of us just model what we've seen. Hello, right? We model what we've seen. Yes. Because it's natural. I remember one time in church, a guy that I actually led to the Lord. He was helping me do some work on the church buses, and we were there at midnight working on the buses, and he accepted the Lord, and he rededicated. His mother told me that he just rededicated his life. So whichever, one or the other, okay. But he had a little baby. He had a little baby at that time, and or shortly after that, and because he had a motorcycle wreck, he had kind of messed up his leg a little bit. So he had a certain kind of walk, you know what I mean, because of the injury in his leg. And the cutest thing was his son was wearing boots just like him, and he was, he was 2, maybe 3, and he was walking just like his dad, even with the kind of the limping type of move, and isn't that the way we are? We model what we see. What are people modeling from you? What do they see in you? That could be a tough question, right? See, I wasn't really ready to ask questions a while ago when Tommy asked me, so I'm kind of on a roll now, right? Is that good, Matthew? Okay, all right. Tommy told me not to step on anybody's toes, so have I stepped on anybody's toes yet? If I've missed yours, I'll come back around, okay? All right, just kidding. So
we can point a finger at Tommy now?
yeah. So what we're the reason for the moral inventory is not to make us feel bad. It's to help us to realize, yes, the bad stuff, but also the good stuff. To take that inventory so we know what we can work on and need to work on, and to become aware. And it's not easy to recognize sometimes the good or the bad. You know what I mean? And if you come face to face with it and you're willing to say, yes, that's what I did, and no, I don't like that, and I do really want to change. And you start to go that way, and you start changing the insides. And when you change the insides, which is the recovery, which was what I was talking about a while ago, when you recover on the inside, Romans 12:2 says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's mental thinking, but it's also your heart. It's also your behaviors. And when you begin to make that shift, neuroscience says every time you have a different thought, a different way of thinking, you change, listen to this, you change your entire brain, the neural network of it. Now, somebody said earlier about, not being able to change your past. Yes, that's true. We can't actually change the past, but as this may be difficult to grasp, but hold on for a second. Listen to me. Just test this out. We can't change the past, but as we move forward in our life and we choose to do different things, and when instead of being here in the past, now we're over here, and all this is the past. Because we changed our way of doing things, we have affected our entire past because we've changed here. So the sum total of my past is not the same as it was here, because now I'm down the road a ways. What do you think about that? And so that affects my past, as far as the way that I look at it. And the longer and the better we're able to function, and then we are able to receive forgiveness and allow that forgiveness to work in our lives and let go of those punishing behaviors or the extreme fear that causes us to react and hide or do what we're talking about tonight, blaming someone, to shift it off of me. Is that clear to you? Let's go back to what Tommy talked about out of the scriptures here, and because we came by this behavior naturally, because Adam and Eve did it, and Tommy read the scripture out of Genesis 3:11 through 13, and because God told Adam what he could do and what he couldn't do. And he conveyed that message, the best that I understand it, to Eve. And it's pretty simple. You can eat of every tree in the garden except for this one over here. Don't eat of that one. right? You know, you can have, I don't know how many trees in this garden, but it was plenty. I mean, you've seen orchards. I'm thinking kind of like an orchard, you know. But even if it's that my friend and our missionary to Nicaragua at their base, they have planted all kinds of different banana trees and pineapples and all kinds of other stuff. There's like 5 or 6 different kinds of banana trees that they have, and all the different things. And so and there's all that's there. And of course down there, it pretty much grows all year round. And so there's abundance of stuff that in the process. And, you know, in kind of in my mind, I can visualize that it probably, even though it's a really nice place there, it's probably way more elaborate. But with all the good stuff there, think about this for a second. With all the good stuff wasn't good enough, and decided to do something different. Anybody here ever found yourself in that kind of spot? I kind of slowed that down for you. And just like Eve, it didn't work out too well for her. How did it work out for you? And you said, Eve, how can you be so stupid? Well, that's the finger there that you're pointing out. And guess what? You do have 3 more pointing back at you. How could I be so stupid to do the stupid stuff that I've done? Let's jump from this scenario, we'll come back, to that other scenario about finding fault with other people doing stuff wrong. There's a speck. You know, you're doing a little something wrong, but I'm carrying this big old beam that's really affecting me. Anybody here ever had something that was just kind of strapped onto you and affecting you? And I'm talking about abstract strapped onto you. If you felt the weight of it, although you may have not been able to physically see it. You know what I mean? Hello? Sometimes it's a little bitty pill or a little bit of dusty type stuff, or maybe it's a bottle of something, or maybe it's something that is just it's electronic waves through the sky and comes up on a TV screen, or maybe it's the thrill of violence. You know, we was talking about inviting somebody to retaliate. I've been there. You know, I was already mad and I was just looking for somebody to help me to express that mad. And usually you can find them. Have you ever noticed that? The last one I remember was on the Walmart parking lot. And it's stupid, right? But we get pushed around by stuff. Anybody here ever got pushed around by stuff? Now, what I'm talking about here is, hey, it's natural, but we need to start catching this sooner than later, right? That's what recovery is about, okay? You're probably not going to be able to get it all right? Eliminate it all, because you're still going to have to deal with stuff, right? And it comes up, and when it comes up, you have to make the decision. And you know what? It's easier to make the decision when it's out here than when it gets buried in here or in here. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Hello. Ding, 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 ding. It's an alarm. It's shown up. Here it is. It's what we call triggers, right? And they are so subtle when they start. Have you ever noticed that, Tina? They're subtle when they start. They're sneaky. They sneak up on you. And you just go ahead and say, okay, I can ignore it. Anybody here ever tried to ignore a sneaky, subtle trigger? How did that work for you? That's what we're talking about, becoming aware. Catch it sooner. Right. No, it's not easy, but it's a whole lot healthier than letting it chew your legs off. Right? Destroy your life and all that around you. Too much? So this obstacle that we have, yeah, usually what we blame in others, the reason why we see it so bad is because we're already involved in it. So we'll jump back into Genesis 3 here, where the father comes and says, Adam, where are you? Now, of course, I've said this last time I was here. Adam knew where he was, just like God has always known where you were. Right? Always. Even when you were doing your best to hide. And they were trying to hide. And so why did he call to them? Is because he needed them to respond to him. To come to him so he could help them. Here, a few weeks ago, I was trying to help a guy out on Main Street, and I said, hey, I just want to help you. He said, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. I'm just here to try to help. You know, he thought I had a particular plan. I just want to help. If I can help, what can I do to help? He said, you make me so mad. I just want to hit you in the face. You know, he didn't. But, you know, we all have some of that stuff inside of us. As soon as he said that, he left. Okay, he left. And that's okay. It's all right. I wasn't trying to provoke him. I was just trying to help him. Does that make sense? And so God asked Adam the question. And the question was, what did you do? Did you eat of that fruit? He says, it's not my fault. I'm putting it in my words here. It's not my fault. It's that woman that you gave me. She gave it to me. She ate and gave it to me. So he blamed the woman and then blamed God. That's real mature. Blaming God, blaming your wife. How's that going to work out for you? How'd it work out for you guys? So he went to Eve, and basically Eve blamed the serpent. And hey, listen, you know, maybe they weren't. Maybe they, you know, we most of our maturity comes through difficulty that we process through. And I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt here, is they didn't have much difficulty up to that point, maybe. What do you think? But they sure had some after that. So the lessons were coming. Okay. All right. So what we need to recognize is that we all have some blind spots. We have some difficult times. Life is messy. We get stuck in our own stupid stuff, right? We get stuck in our own stupid stuff. And then we try to cover it up. We try to hide. We try to blame somebody else about my stupid stuff. Is that not true? And all that's doing is making it worse. Would you agree with that? Is that true? Is that true? Now, the rest of the story is eventually you're gonna have to own up to your stuff. And I'm thinking that if we own up quicker, then we'll have less stuff we gotta own up to. What do you think? Is that a good strategy? Yes? Would you agree? So here's a quote. I think John Maxwell said this. He says, every situation in life that comes our way is disguised as a problem. But the problems are really God's opportunities. What do you think about that? Sometimes that's a hard nut to swallow, but if you think about it, I believe you'll see that there is truth behind that statement. Of course, we know the old statement is, if life is giving you lemons, make lemonade, right? But that's basically saying the same thing. But we've heard so much, it doesn't have much of a bite, right? So, to make something good in our life is that we need to take the difficulties. And those difficulties, the reason why they're so difficult is because we need to grow in those areas to help us to learn how to manage those difficulties. And once you've learned that, then it's a lot less difficult. Would you agree? Are you sure? Susan Folkman from the University of San Francisco, she made this statement, says, we deal with stress in two basic ways. I've been kind of stressing you up here with stuff here, but I thought it ties into our lesson here. She says the first way is in problem-focused coping. I have never heard anybody use that terminology before, that particular terminology before, but problem-focused coping, and that we are directed in addressing the threat and challenging the situation. Okay, that's problem-focused coping, or even I would call it problem solving, but we choose to go ahead and deal with it. That's taking responsibility for whatever comes my way. Are you responsible for everything that comes your way? You're not responsible for why it's there, but you're responsible after it gets here, what you do with it, right? Isn't that true? Yeah, I know this one. I've heard this one. In fact, I've even said it. Why is this always happening to me? Nobody's here probably ever said that, but you probably know people that have said that. And that's like a big invitation. They say, hey, everybody, they're wanting some more. Would you agree? The other basic way is the emotional focused coping, okay? And that is when you try to make yourself feel better about the threat. In other words, you're not going to deal with the threat. You're just going to try to ease the pain of the threat. Manage your emotions with, oftentimes with diversionary tactics or numbing, right? Drugs, alcohol, obsessive compulsive behavior, anger, whatever it is that shifts your state so you can move out of whatever's going on. Did you understand that? Shift your state? Okay. So, pointing, blaming, shifting blame. Are you interested in being aware of when you're doing that? How many of you think you may do this, although you may not be totally aware of it? Anybody? Anybody? Anybody bold enough? You guys are a bunch of liars. Oh, you're not a liar then. The scripture says, do not judge others and you will not be judged. That's really a good thing to know, right? For you will be treated as you treat others. That's another good thing to know. You know, I used to work with a guy when I was going to college, and he says, my dad always says every dog has his day. And I asked him one time, what does that mean? He says, one of these times he's going to bite you. That's what he said. Does that sound about right? Some people say what goes around comes around, you know. But the fact of it is, I decided a long time ago, it's better for me to send out good stuff, and that's going to come around too, right? Instead of sending out bad stuff, which I prefer it not to come back to me. How's that worked out for you? So, the standard you use to judge in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. That's a powerful principle. That's something that we need to be aware of. That's what I call the why statement. Why should I change my behavior? Because it's in my best interest. Because how I treat others is how it's going to come back to me. Right? You know, if I cheat others, I'm going to be cheated. I had a guy tell me this several years ago. He says, you know, I used to steal stuff. I'd break into salvage yards and steal stuff and do these things. And I finally come to the place that I decided that wasn't what I want to do. That I always felt bad about that. And he said, and the rest of the story was, it usually ended up actually costing me more money because he either had to fix it or something happened or other things happened. He said it usually cost me more money. So now I just do it the right way and it's cheaper. That's his statement. And he was convinced of that. And besides that, when we do harm to others, it causes us to carry a weight. Would you agree with that? Then we're less happy with us, and that affects us. That puts a negative heaviness in us. And I wonder if that affects our immune system and how we think and how we function and our energy. What do you think? Got any ideas about that? I think there's a possibility. So, what is your blind spot? I'm winding down here. This is in orange writing here with big letters. What is your blind spot? Think about it for a second. What could be your blind spot? What could it be? What if I said, actually, I got down here spots. What are your blind spots? Here could be an indicator. This just flashed in me. Why does this keep happening to me? Okay. That could be an indicator of a place to look and see what's going on there. What's going on before that event? Okay. Let's take a look. Let's investigate. Let's be curious about our life. I don't think I've said this in a while, but we really have to go to school on ourselves so that we can grow and develop and mature. Would you agree with that statement? Is that a reasonably good statement? Okay. Are you blaming? We'll go to the next question. Are you blaming others? Oh, that's it. Yeah, and I was gonna come back to this a while ago when that question I said I was gonna come back to, and I never did really got to it, but this is, I think, pretty close to it. So, are you blaming others to give you emotional cover? Emotional cover. That's almost like inviting that retaliation thing, you know. All right. There's still no comments, so shall I go to the next one? I haven't seen anybody yawn yet, so. Okay, all right, the next one. Are you able to operate in emotional maturity and take on your personal responsibilities? Excuse me? All right, high five, air high five. How about that? Another air high five. Anybody else want an air high five? Anybody? Okay, all right. Are you able to operate in emotional maturity and take on your personal responsibilities? Excuse me?
We had a family reunion, and I went back, when we were back there, I told my siblings, I'm not what I was yesterday, but today will be better, and tomorrow will be even brighter. But who I was and what I am now is totally different, and I can talk it, but it don't mean nothing unless I'm walking.
That's true. Absolutely.
So they say we see it.
Well, one of the ways to show that maturity is by taking responsibility and walking it out, just like you said.
And I apologize to everyone.
That's the beginning.
Wasn't easy.
No, but it broke through some barriers that can propel you into a lot of good things on the other side of that.
I had one negative response. I may forgive you, but I'll never forget.
Well, which is a true statement. But that's, we're not responsible for people's response. We're responsible for our actions, our response. Okay. So, all right, if you're not operating in emotional maturity and taking on your personal responsibilities, if not, when? When are you? When? In 10 years? Oh, not that far, right? Okay, how about 7 years? That seems a little ridiculous, right? Surely, I want to do it, but I'm not going to wait 7 years to start. How about 5? How about 3? You're going to wait 3 years? 1 year? I'm going to make the change in a year.
Said that before.
And here comes the question. Are you ready? How'd that work out for you?
Yeah.
Because that's, thank you for saying that. It never started. So then what's the answer to my question here? If not, when? When is now? Because that's the only thing we really have any control over is right now. And we're either going to choose to get better or choose not to get better right now. Right? We make that decision right now. Now, in this moment, and the next moment, and the next moment, and the next moment. And we keep making those healthy choices, and after a while, it becomes a habit, and that habit produces a different way of thinking, and that thinking produces different emotional responses in our life. My emotions start to shift around. I'm able to forgive. I'm able to let go. I'm able to smile when people say stupid stuff. Okay. I'm able to see when they're mad at me that it's just what's going on in their own life. I had a guy call me today and he was unhappy about a situation. And I listened to him and I said, hey, I think we can, we can deal with this and we can try to work it out. See if we can get some, resolve this situation. And, of course that was a ways into the conversation. And he said, well, thank you. I think I was just going to give up, but now I think I'm going to hang in there. And he said, and after talking to you, he said, maybe I just need to vent a little bit. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes we just have to vent a little bit. But the fact of it is, I didn't take it personally. It wasn't about, I didn't have to go into a defense mode and you know how that is, right? So I'm going to stop talking about that right there. So anyway, when are you going to start? If not today, when? That concludes my thoughts. Anybody have any thoughts or questions, comments, input on tonight? Did you get anything out of it?
Yes.
Did you get anything out of it? Okay, you got something out of it? What'd you get? Do what? A lot of thinking to do, okay. Tommy, what'd you get out of it?
Just that I see things.
I adjusted, okay. And I don't remember your name.
Jeff.
Jeff, what'd you get out of it? You said you got something? Need to think more. That's always a positive thing, right? Instead of react, think, right? That's a big one. Yes, sir.
Realization.
Do what?
Realization.
Realization. All right. That's a big one. That's a big one. That's like coming out of the dark and into the light, right? Awesome. High five. Who else? Tina, anything?
No,
No? Okay. I thought you said you got something out of it.
no.
Oh, okay. You didn't get anything out of it. All right. Oh, we're glad you're here. You've been promising me you'd come for a long time. How about you folks on the back row there? Any comments?
I mean, I found that it's real easy to judge, finger, and need to be focused on self and others. It's real easy to finger, sure.
All right. Thank you.
There.
You ladies have anything you'd like to say? Laura, you said a few things, but you got the quieted one there with you. So.
I guess I'm supposed to be here. I brought my daughter here.
Oh, okay.
And,
All right.
But she came to take care of me. I've had 2 major surgeries
Okay.
in 2 months.
And she's got her hands full.
Thank you, Dad. And, but I've been blaming somebody for my situation for a very long time.
Mm.
And because my husband had come cheat on me. He got with a woman that carried the HPV for cervical cancer. And now I'm running tubes in my back because of the complications of all of that. And each time I go to the doctor, it's always something. I say, why not? But it's then again, it's like, well, there's nothing I can blame you for. And so I think I need to stop doing that.
Tough stuff.
Very, very tough. And,
But forgiveness is not about them. Forgiveness is about us.
yeah,
And I know that's easy to say.
yeah, it's been a good part of it. Hospital 5 times a year. And my son died a year ago.
Sorry to hear that.
A lot of blame to everything, but I don't know where to put it. I don't know what to do with it. It's been very hard to figure out. Just made me realize the blame shifted.
Well, thank you for your comments.
Her name is Misty.
Misty. Any comments, Misty? You don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
Mine would probably be the retaliation, because there was an incident with my ex, we were talking on the phone one time, and about a week or so later, we met him again, and he's like, I remember you called me a B, and I said, yeah, he was calling me a B again, so I called him and he punched me, I said, well, don't tell me to call you that. So I was just, looking for the retaliation to it, but maybe I shouldn't do that.
You probably know, right?
Yeah.
You know, I was telling somebody the other day, I said, we were talking and I said, sometimes we don't always know what the next right thing to do might be, but we just about always know the next wrong thing we're about to do because we know when it's wrong. We know what not to do. And if we, and Jordan Peterson says this, I like what he says about this. He said, if you can just stop doing the wrong stuff, your life will get better. The reality of it is, then you'll have really more room to do the right stuff. That's Doug's addition onto his statement there. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Be back here next week, right?
Right.
So may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you and give you his peace. And again, of course, make healthy choices because it is in your best interest, right? Isn't it in your best interest to make healthy choices? So make healthy choices. Till next week, take care of yourself. Good night.